CreepyCorner stories.
Hey everyone, welcome back to CreepyCorner stories. You know, diving into the dark web is always risky, but sharing these stories with you makes it worth it. I'm curious, where are you watching this from right now? Let me know in the comments below. I've noticed that these kinds of stories hit differently depending on where you are. It might even make the experience a little creepier. So, tell me, are you watching from the safety of your home or somewhere less secure? I found a dark web red room that only streams on Halloween. The last guest was never reported missing. Alright, so before I even start this, let me just say, I know how this sounds. If I was reading this, I probably wouldn't believe it either. But I swear on everything, this really happened. And if you're smart, you'll stay far away from the deep web. I'm not some hacker or anything. I'm just a regular dude. 24, work a dead-end job at a gas station, live alone in a cheap apartment with neighbors I've never met. You know, the usual. Anyway, this whole thing started last October. I was on a late night YouTube binge, watching horror story animations. You know, those creepy ones with the monotone narrators and weirdly unsettling backgrounds. I fell down a rabbit hole and ended up on some video about red rooms. You know, those deep web live streams where people get tortured for money. Most people think they're fake, just urban legends. That's what I thought too. But then, I made the dumbest decision of my life. The link in the comment section of that video, someone had posted a link. It wasn't a regular URL. It was a string of random letters and numbers ending in .onion. For those of you who don't know, that means it's a dark web link. You can't access it with Chrome or Safari. You need a special browser called Tor. Curiosity got the best of me. I downloaded Tor, pasted the link, and hit enter. The website was minimalistic, to say the least. Just a black background with red text at the top. Halloween night, 12 a.m. EST. One show only. Join us. Underneath, there was a single button labeled Request an Invite. Now, normal people would have closed the page. But I wasn't normal people. I thought it was some ARG, alternate reality game, or an elaborate Halloween prank. So, like an idiot, I clicked the button. It took me to a simple form, asking for my email. I used a burner Gmail I made years ago for sketchy downloads and hit submit. Nothing happened. No confirmation, no message, just a blank screen. I closed my laptop and went to bed, figuring it was a joke. I wish it had been. The email. The next morning, I woke up to an email. The subject line: You are invited. The sender was just a string of random numbers, and the body of the email was almost empty, except for a new .onion link and a message. Do not share this link. Do not record. Do not interfere. See you at midnight. There was something about it that made my stomach twist. I told myself it was just an elaborate horror-themed event, probably run by some YouTubers trying to make a viral video. But still, something about the wording felt off. I debated whether or not to open it, but deep down, I already knew I was going to. I had the whole night off anyway, and what better way to spend Halloween than watching some underground horror stream? Halloween night, midnight rolled around, and I was sitting in my dark room with nothing but my laptop screen lighting up my face. The world outside was dead silent. No trick-or-treaters, no cars, nothing. Just the occasional gust of wind rattling my window. I clicked the link. The site loaded instantly. No login, no paywall, just a single video player in the center of the screen. The stream hadn't started yet, but the chat was already active, and it was weird. Most streams have your usual trolls and spammers, but this was different. The usernames weren't normal, just a mess of numbers and symbols, and the messages. I wonder if they'll scream this year. Last year's guest was disappointing. Hope the new one puts up a fight. She never screamed. I miss her. My skin crawled. This wasn't an ARG. It wasn't some YouTube event. I was in something real. Then, right at 12 a.m., the screen flickered to life. The room. At first, the video was just static. Then the camera adjusted, revealing a dimly lit concrete room. No windows, no furniture, just a single metal chair in the center, with someone sitting in it. A man. He was slumped forward, head down, shirtless. His arms were tied behind his back, and there was a black bag over his head. A clock on the wall read 12 a.m. Then, the chat exploded. He's awake. Finally, some action. Last year's girl was boring. Hope this one lasts longer. My breathing was shallow. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't staged. This was real. The camera zoomed in slightly, and that's when I saw it. The man's chest was rising and falling. He was breathing. He was alive. Before I could react, a door opened off-screen, and someone walked in. They were wearing a mask, white, expressionless, like something out of a horror movie. In one hand, they held a long, thin blade. The chat went wild. Finally! Start already. Make him beg. I slammed my laptop shut. My hands were shaking. This wasn't just some deep web horror site. This was an actual red room, and I had just watched someone about to die. But that wasn't even the worst part, because as I sat there, heart pounding, I heard a ding from my phone. A new email. I hesitated before unlocking it, my stomach dropping as I read the message. You watched. Now you're part of the game. And below that, a picture of my apartment, taken from outside my window. My body froze. I wasn't breathing. I wasn't thinking. I was just staring at the screen of my phone, hands shaking so bad I almost dropped it. The email was still open. You watched. Now you're part of the game. And below that photo, it was a picture of my apartment, taken from outside my window. I live on the 3rd floor. There's no balcony. There's no fire escape. There's no way anyone could have taken that photo unless they were right outside my window, which should have been impossible. Should have been. I swallowed hard and forced myself to stand up. My legs felt numb. Every inch of my body was screaming at me to run, to do something, but all I could do was creep toward my bedroom window like a dumbass in a horror movie. I pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. Darkness. The parking lot was empty, except for my car and a couple of others from tenants I never talked to. The streetlights buzzed, flickering slightly. Nothing looked out of place. Then I noticed something. My bedroom window wasn't locked. It had been locked earlier. I was sure of it. I always lock it. I slammed it shut, locked it, and staggered backward, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My mind was racing, trying to convince myself this was all some elaborate prank. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe... Ding. Another email. I didn't want to open it. Every instinct told me not to, but I couldn't stop myself. My thumb moved on its own. The subject line was different this time. Run. The body of the email was just a single attachment. A video file. I hesitated. My mouth was so dry I could barely swallow. My hands trembled as I tapped the file. The video started playing. It was security camera footage. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at, but when I did, my stomach dropped. It was me. The footage was from my apartment's hallway. The timestamp read 11:58 p.m., just 2 minutes before I clicked on that deep web stream. And there I was, standing in front of my door, fumbling with my keys. But I wasn't alone. There was someone else in the footage. A figure, standing at the far end of the hallway, barely visible. At first, they weren't moving, just watching me. Then, step. They moved closer. Step. Closer. Their posture was wrong. Head tilted unnaturally to one side, arms hanging loosely at their sides, like a puppet with its strings cut. Step. I unlocked my door, still completely unaware. Step. They were getting closer. I walked inside. They were just feet away from me now. The second my door shut behind me, the figure stopped, paused. Then, slowly, they turned their head toward the camera. I sucked in a sharp breath. They were wearing a mask, not the same one from the Red Room stream. This one was different. It was a human face, not a plastic or rubber mask. A real human face, skinned off someone else and stitched together like a sick trophy. The mouth was stretched into a grotesque grin, lips stitched back to expose too many teeth. And the eyes weren't empty holes. There were real eyes inside the sockets. Someone else's eyes, staring. Right. Address, mister. The video ended. I dropped my phone. My breath came in shallow gasps, and for the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be prey. Something was watching me. Something had been inside my apartment building, and I had no idea. A loud knock shattered the silence. I nearly jumped out of my skin. My eyes shot toward my front door. Another knock, harder this time. I backed away. My heart felt like it was going to explode. My mind was screaming at me to call the cops, but my body wasn't moving. Then, my phone vibrated. A new message from an unknown number. Do not open the door. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then, the doorknob twisted. Someone was trying to get in. I backed away further, heart hammering against my ribs. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. I grabbed the nearest thing, a lamp, and raised it like a weapon. The doorknob stopped moving. Then, a new sound. Not knocking, not twisting, scratching. Soft at first, then deeper, more aggressive. Whoever was outside was clawing at my door. I clenched my teeth and forced myself to move. My brain finally kicked in. I grabbed my phone and sprinted to the bathroom, locking the door behind me. The scratching continued. Then came the whispering, muffled, distorted. I couldn't make out the words, but I knew they were speaking to me. Then, silence. A full minute passed. Then 2. Then 3. I didn't dare move. Then my phone vibrated again. I looked down. Another text. We'll try again next year. Happy Halloween. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't leave my bathroom until sunrise. When I finally worked up the courage to check my front door, my stomach turned to ice. Because on the wood, right where the scratching had been, were 10 deep, bloody claw marks, and taped beneath them, a mask. Not the skin one from the video, not the white one from the Red Room, a new one. This time, it was my face. I don't remember how long I stood there, staring at it. My mask, my face. It wasn't made of latex or plastic. It wasn't a Halloween store prop. It was real skin, real flesh, and it looked just like me. Every detail, every crease, Every imperfection, even the faint scar on my forehead from when I fell off my bike as a kid. It was all there, but it wasn't mine, because I was still standing, still breathing. So whose skin was it? My stomach twisted into knots. My legs felt numb. I wanted to scream, wanted to run, but I was frozen in place, trapped in my own nightmare. The mask was stitched together, the skin stretched too tight over something solid beneath it. The mouth was slightly open, revealing something inside. Teeth. Real human teeth. I couldn't take it anymore. My body finally kicked into survival mode, and I staggered back, knocking over a chair in my living room. The noise was sharp, too loud in the suffocating silence. Then, my phone vibrated. A new message. Unknown number. Put it on. I nearly dropped my phone. My breath hitched in my throat, and I slowly, hesitantly, looked back at the mask. There was something stuffed into its mouth. A piece of paper. My hands trembled as I reached for it, pulling it free. It was a photo, a Polaroid, of me. But it wasn't from today. It wasn't from my social media, or a photo someone could have taken recently. It was from my childhood. Me, sitting at a table in a McDonald's, birthday cake in front of me, wearing a stupid paper crown. The problem was, I had never seen this picture before. I didn't remember it being taken. And in the background, behind me, there was a man, out of focus, dressed in black, face obscured by shadow, watching me since I was a kid. They've been watching me my whole life. I stumbled back, the photo falling from my hands. This wasn't random. This wasn't just some sick game I had stumbled into. They knew me. They had known me for years. How many times had they been near me? How many times had they watched me without me even knowing? My breathing was too shallow, too fast, like I was drowning in my own terror. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking so bad I could barely type. I called 911. It rang once, twice. Then, the line went dead. No static, no voicemail, just nothing. Then, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. You really shouldn't have done that. Then, another attachment, a video file. I didn't want to open it. I knew that whatever was in that video, I couldn't unsee it, but I couldn't stop myself. The video started playing. It was security camera footage from inside my apartment. The intruder. The timestamp was from last night, just a few hours before the Red Room stream. The camera was positioned in the corner of my living room, facing the couch where I'd been sitting. The room was dim, only the glow from my laptop screen lighting the space. I watched myself on the screen, sitting on the couch, staring at my laptop. Then, a shadow moved behind me. I felt bile rise in my throat. Something had been in my apartment. Something had been standing right behind me. I watched, unable to blink, unable to breathe. The figure was tall, wearing all black, face completely covered by a mask. But not the one from the Red Room, not the one I found on my door. This one was featureless, smooth, white, like a mannequin. They moved silently, effortlessly, stepping right up behind me. I didn't react. I didn't flinch, because I never knew. They leaned down, inches from my face. They were breathing on me. Then, they lifted something. A phone. My phone. They typed something. Then my laptop screen flickered. That was when the Red Room stream started. I gasped, nearly dropping my phone. They were the ones who sent me the link. They were the ones who wanted me to watch. Then, the figure in the video did something that made my blood turn to ice. They turned toward the camera. They knew it was there. They knew I'd be watching. And then, they waved. Not a threatening wave, not an aggressive one. A slow, gentle wave, like they were saying goodnight. Then the video ended. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Someone had been in my apartment, right behind me. They could have killed me, but they didn't, because this wasn't about killing me. This was about playing with me. My phone vibrated again. Another text. Ready for round 2. Then the lights in my apartment went out. Total darkness. I grabbed the closest thing I could, a kitchen knife, and backed against the wall, trying to control my breathing. My eyes adjusted to the darkness, and I listened. Silence. Then a sound, not from inside my apartment, from outside, from the hallway. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming straight for my door. I clenched the knife so tight, my knuckles turned white. The footsteps stopped, right outside my apartment. I couldn't see. I couldn't move. Then, something slid under my door. A piece of paper. I hesitated before bending down and picking it up, my breath coming in ragged gasps. There was one sentence, scrawled in deep red ink. Or maybe it wasn't ink. You should have put on the mask. Then, a whisper, right on the other side of the door. Software, gentle. See you next Halloween. And then, they were gone. The lights flickered back on. My phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. Happy Halloween. Then, the number was gone. Vanished. Like it had never existed. I didn't sleep. I didn't call the cops. Because what the hell was I going to tell them? That a group of masked psychopaths had been watching me since I was a kid. That they broke into my apartment, stood behind me, sent me a link to a torture livestream, then left me a mask of my own face. No one would believe me. So I did the only thing I could. I moved, changed cities, changed jobs, deleted all my social media. For a whole year, I was paranoid, watching my back, sleeping with a knife under my pillow. But nothing happened. I thought, maybe, just maybe, I was safe. Then, this morning, I got an email. No subject line, no message, just an attachment, a new video file. I haven't opened it yet, but I already know what's in it, and I already know what it means, because today is October 31st, and it's almost midnight. I sat there, staring at the screen. The email sat unopened, the attachment waiting. The cursor blinked. My breathing was shallow, my fingers hovering over the mouse. One click. That was all it would take. But I already knew that whatever was in that video, I couldn't unsee it. Last year, I was lucky. Lucky they let me go. Lucky they wanted to play instead of kill. Lucky that, for whatever reason, they decided I was fun enough to keep alive. But tonight, I had a feeling my luck had finally run out. The video. My hand was shaking as I clicked the file. The screen flickered. A grainy, low-resolution video began to play. At first, it was nothing but static. Then, movement. The footage was dimly lit, the camera shaking slightly, as if held by someone walking. The timestamp in the corner read 11:45 p.m., 15 minutes until midnight. Then, the camera panned up, and my stomach dropped. It was my new apartment building. I grabbed the edge of my desk, my pulse hammering in my ears. This wasn't old footage. This was happening right now. Whoever was recording this was outside my building. They knew where I lived. They had found me. The person holding the camera kept walking. Step, step, step. Boots crunching against wet pavement. The occasional flicker of a street lamp cast a distorted shadow on the ground. Then, the camera stopped, pointed directly at my window. The lights were on. I saw myself. I was sitting at my desk. Right now. Watching the video, the camera zoomed in. I nearly vomited. I twisted around so fast my chair toppled over. I sprinted to the window, ripped the curtains closed, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Someone was outside. Someone was watching me. Then, my phone vibrated. Another email. Unknown sender. Turn around. A scream got caught in my throat. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to turn around. But I had to. Slowly, stiffly, I turned back toward my screen. The video was still playing, but now the camera was inside my apartment building. The elevator doors slid open and the camera stepped out into the hallway. My hallway. The light above flickered, casting long, warped shadows on the walls. The camera moved forward, slow, deliberate. Step, step, step. Then it stopped, in front of my door. My door. I reached under my desk, grabbed the kitchen knife I kept duct taped to the underside. My fingers clenched the handle so tight, my knuckles turned white. The video continued. A hand reached out, covered in black leather gloves. They grabbed my doorknob and twisted. I gasped, heart slamming against my ribs. But the door didn't open. It was locked. Then, a single knock, not from the video, from my actual door. I stopped breathing. I clutched a knife, body frozen, ears straining. Silence. Then, knock, knock, knock. The exact same rhythm as last year. I backed away, gripping the knife so tight, my nails dug into my palm. This wasn't happening. This wasn't real. Then, a new sound. A scraping noise, like a blade dragging across my door. Slow, deliberate. Then, the whispering, right outside my door, muffled, garbled, like a voice speaking through a radio with bad reception. I pressed myself against the far wall, shaken. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. Then, my phone vibrated. I looked down. Another message. You're going to let me in this time. Then, the doorknob twisted again. Harder, more aggressive. They were trying to break in. I raised the knife, my pulse hammering so hard I thought I'd pass out. Then, the sound stopped. Total silence. I stayed frozen, ears straining. Nothing. I crept forward, barely breathing, and pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty, but something wasn't right. The light was flickering, and the floor. It wasn't empty. There was something on the ground. A mask. Not the skin mask from last year. Not the white, featureless one. This one was different. It was a half mask, a smiling face, but the mouth was too wide, too unnatural. Then, I noticed something else. A piece of paper was folded underneath the mask. I hesitated before unlocking the door, my breath shallow, my fingers gripping the knife like a lifeline. I flung the door open. Empty. I grabbed the paper, hands shaking, and unfolded it. There was one sentence, written in deep, dark red ink. Or maybe it wasn't ink. See you on the live stream. Then, my phone buzzed again. A new link. A Red Room link, and beneath it, a preview window, a live feed. I felt my soul leave my body, because the live feed wasn't from some basement. It wasn't from a distant, unknown location. It was my apartment. A camera was inside my apartment, and it was filming me. Then, the video feed glitched, the image warped, distorted. Then, I saw it, a figure, standing behind me, wearing the half mask, grinning, watching, waiting. Then, the video cut to black. A countdown appeared on the screen. Stream begins in 10 minutes. I dropped my phone, because I finally understood. This time, I wasn't a viewer. This time, I wasn't a guest. This time, I was the show. I was already dead. I knew that. There was no way out, no way to run, No way to hide. Countdown on my screen ticked lower. 9 minutes. The live feed was still open, frozen on the last frame. The figure in the half mask stood right behind me, head tilted, the grin too wide. But when I turned around, nothing. My apartment was empty, but I wasn't stupid. They were here, watching, waiting. I grabbed my knife and my car keys in one movement, breathing too fast, heart hammering against my ribs. I had one chance. I was getting out of here. I moved fast, gripping the knife so tight my fingers ached. I unlocked my door in one motion, yanked it open, and sprinted. Down the hall, past the elevator, straight to the stairwell. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe. I just ran. 8 minutes. I took the stairs 3 at a time. The walls blurred past me. I hit the bottom floor hard, nearly tripping. My lungs burned. My hands shook as I shoved open the door to the parking lot. My car was right there. I bolted toward it, fumbling with my keys. Just get in. Just drive. I hit the unlock button. Click. The headlights blinked. The doors unlocked. I yanked the handle, jumped inside, and slammed the door shut behind me. I jammed the keys into the ignition and turned. The engine didn't start. No click. No sputter. Nothing. I turned it again. Nothing. Then, the radio crackled. A distorted voice filled the car. A voice that sounded almost like mine, but wrong. Why are you running? I shoved the door handle. Locked. I tried the other. Locked. The air inside the car shifted, and then I smelled it. Rot. Decay. Like something dead was sitting right next to me. I turned slowly, and in the passenger seat, they were there. The figure in the half mask, the same grin, the same head tilt, watching me, and they were holding something, a phone. They turned the screen toward me, and I saw myself, live. The Red Room stream had started. I was already on camera. I slammed my fist into the window, screaming. I grabbed the knife and stabbed, but the blade went through empty air. The figure was gone. I gasped, head snapping around, body trembling. The passenger seat was empty, but the phone was still there, screen glowing, a live chat at the bottom, and the messages, they were all talking about me. He looked scared. Do it already. Where's the fun in that? Let him run. I like when they beg. I scrambled out of the car, heart slamming, legs barely working. I had to get out of here. I sprinted toward the main road. My apartment complex was dead silent. No other cars, no people, no lights in the windows. Like the world had emptied itself out. Like it was just me and them. 6 minutes. I ran. I ran so hard I thought my lungs would collapse. I just needed to get somewhere public. Somewhere safe. I saw a McDonald's down the street. The sign glowed red against the dark sky. Open 24/7. I could make it. 5 minutes. I didn't stop. I hit the parking lot, nearly falling forward, shoving through the glass doors. The smell of fryer oil and stale coffee hit me at once. The cashier, a teenage girl with dark circles under her eyes, looked up from her phone. You okay? I looked around. There were no customers, no other workers, just the cashier, just her. I grabbed the counter, gasping. Please, call the police. Someone's after me. She blinked, like she didn't understand. Then, her phone buzzed. She glanced down. The screen lit up. Then, she smiled. The exact same unnatural grin as the half mask. She tilted her head. They're already here. 4 minutes. The kitchen door swung open. 2 workers stepped out. Identical grins. Identical head tilts. They didn't blink. I backed up, my entire body screaming to run. Then, the doors behind me locked. The lights flickered. The air turned suffocating. The workers stepped closer. I grabbed a chair and swung. The metal cracked against the cashier's face, but she didn't react. She just kept smiling. I didn't wait. I bolted toward the kitchen, jumping over the counter, nearly slipping on the greasy floor. I shoved through the back exit and burst into the alley. I had to keep running, but I stopped because they were waiting. A crowd of them, standing in the alley. Dozens, men, women, children, all wearing half masks, all grinning, all watching me. I turned. More of them, behind me, blocking every exit. I was surrounded. The air went still. The world stopped. Then, a single voice, low, crooked, from somewhere deep in the crowd. The show must go on. 3 minutes. I ran toward the nearest one, swinging the knife. They didn't move. The blade sank in, but there was no blood. Just static, like I had stabbed a glitch in reality. Their body twitched, like a video buffering. Then, they laughed. Not like a person, like a recording of a laugh, played over and over again. And suddenly, they all started laughing. The exact same laugh. I dropped the knife. My hands were shaking. My vision blurred. Then, my phone vibrated. A new message. I looked down. 1 minute. I heard footsteps. A new figure stepped forward, taller, dressed in black, and wearing a mask. Not a half mask, a full mask. My face, my own face. The mask I found on my door last year. They leaned down until their face was inches from mine, and they whispered, "It's your turn now." Then, the timer hit 0, and everything went black. The final broadcast. I don't know how long I was gone, but when I woke up, I was somewhere else, somewhere dark. Concrete walls, no windows, a chair, a camera. I was tied down, a bag over my head. I couldn't move. Then, a voice from a speaker above me. "Welcome to the show." Then, the camera light turned red. The live stream had started, and this time, I was the guest. I paid to watch a virtual Red Room on the dark web. The next day, someone followed me home. Alright, so before I even get into this, let me just say, I know I messed up. Like, I wasn't some clueless teenager looking for edgy thrills. I was a grown adult, 22 at the time, just scrolling through weird forums on a Friday night. You know, the kind of places where people talk about government conspiracies, glitch in the Matrix experiences, and all that deep web horror story stuff. I never took it seriously. It was just fun, something to read while half asleep in my apartment, with Netflix playing in the background. But that night, that's when I saw the post. It was buried in a thread about illegal websites, stuff you should never click on, the kind of sites where you'd either get arrested or traumatized for life. And someone had posted this comment, real casual, like they were recommending a movie. If you're into real horror, check out v1r.red, not for the weak. At first, I thought it was just some dumb RRG or scam, but curiosity got the better of me. A few clicks, a Tor browser install, and a sketchy forum registration later, I found myself staring at a plain black screen with a single red button in the middle. No fancy graphics, no explanation, just a title at the top. Welcome to the virtual Red Room. Now, I'd heard of Red Rooms before. The stories online made them sound like some urban legend, live streams of real murders, torture, worse. But most of those were fake, right? I mean, that's what everyone always says. I sat there for a good 10 minutes, my cursor hovering over the button. It wasn't like I was actually going to watch anything. I just wanted to see if the site was even real. Maybe it would just be some creepy video, like those AI-generated horror art things that go viral on Twitter. So, like an idiot, I clicked it, and that's when the countdown started. A red timer appeared on the screen. 0, 0, 0, 5, 0, 0. Then a message popped up. Access requires payment. Wire $500 in crypto to proceed. I laughed out loud. Of course, it was a scam. Classic dark web nonsense, preying on dumbasses who wanted to feel edgy. But then, I noticed something weird. My screen flashed. For less than a second, like something was watching me. I thought it was just my paranoia acting up, but when I moved my cursor, I noticed the little webcam light on my laptop was on. It was recording me. I slammed my laptop shut so fast, I nearly knocked over my Red Bull. My heart was racing. Had they hacked me? Was someone on the other end of that site, watching me through my camera? I sat there, breathing heavy, debating if I should just toss my laptop home out the window. But then my phone buzzed. A new notification. Venmo. $500 received. Wait. What? I clicked on it. The payment was labeled for access. V1R.RED. I hadn't sent anything. I didn't even have crypto. But somehow, someway, the money had been transferred from my account. I didn't even get a chance to react, because at that moment, my laptop turned back on. I swear to God, I hadn't touched it. And on the screen was a live feed of me, sitting in my apartment. And then, in the reflection of my screen, I saw something move behind me. I swear to you, I don't think I've ever felt a fear like that before. The kind that doesn't hit all at once, but creeps up your spine in slow motion, like your brain is refusing to process what's happening. Because right there, on my laptop screen, was me, sitting at my desk, and behind me, something moved. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't some trick of the light. It was a person. I froze. My entire body locked up. My hands were still on the laptop, gripping the edges so hard my knuckles turned white. My breathing slowed, my pulse pounding in my ears. I wanted to turn around. I needed to turn around, but my body wouldn't let me. Whoever was behind me, they were close. Then the laptop screen glitched. For a fraction of a second, the live feed distorted, and in that split second, I saw it. A face. Not just any face. A wide, stretched out grin. Teeth too white. Eyes too wide. Like someone wearing a mask of human skin, but not quite right. The image flickered. My laptop screen went black, and I swear on my life, I felt breath on the back of my neck. I snapped. My survival instincts finally kicked in, and I threw myself forward, flipping my chair over as I scrambled across the floor. My foot slipped on a discarded hoodie, and I hit the ground hard, knocking my elbow against the corner of my desk. I gasped in pain, but I didn't stop. I had to get out. I scrambled to my feet, sprinting toward my bedroom door. It was closed. Had I closed it? I couldn't remember. I reached for the knob, and it wouldn't turn. Locked. My brain short-circuited. My door didn't have a lock. I spun around, chest heaving, my vision swimming in the dim glow of my laptop screen. The room was empty. No one was there, but I could still feel it. That presence. Something had been in here. Something that had touched my door. I backed up, pressing myself against the wood, my hands shaking as I fumbled for my phone. I had to call someone. The police. A friend. I didn't care. My fingers swiped wildly at the screen, but as soon as I unlocked it, a notification popped up. New video received. It was from an unknown number. and attached was a video of me from inside my apartment. The footage was perfectly still, like someone had set up a hidden camera. It showed me sitting at my desk 5 minutes ago, the exact moment I clicked on the dark web link. But then, at the 12-second mark, something changed. In the video, my laptop screen flickered, and from under my bed, something crawled out. I swear to God, I couldn't breathe. The thing in the video moved slowly, methodically. It had long limbs, bent at unnatural angles, its hands flat on the ground as it pulled itself forward. But its head, it didn't lift its head. It just kept crawling inch by inch until it was directly behind my chair. And then the video cut out. I dropped my phone. I don't even remember doing it. My body felt like it wasn't my own, like I was watching myself from the outside. Every instinct was screaming, "Run!" But where? The door wouldn't open. My window was 3 floors up. Then, knock, knock, knock. I nearly pissed myself. It came from the closet. Not my front door. Not the hallway. My fucking closet. I don't know what I expected. Maybe nothing. Maybe my brain was breaking, making me hear things. But then, from the other side of the door, a voice. "I like watching you." It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't distorted or inhuman. It was clear. Software. Like someone was standing right there. Like they had been standing there for a long, long time. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. My throat locked up. My whole body shut down. And then the doorknob turned. Slowly. I reacted before I could think. I grabbed the closest thing, my desk lamp, and hurled it at the closet door. The bulb exploded on impact, glass shattering across the floor, plunging the room into near total darkness. But I didn't wait to see what happened next. I turned, ran. I threw myself at the window, unlocking it in a panic, my hand slipping on the frame. My mind wasn't even processing the height anymore. I just needed to get out. Then, I heard it. A long, slow creak. The closet door. Opening. And then, a whisper inches from my ear. "See you soon." That was the last thing I remember before I blacked out. I woke up somewhere else. Not in my apartment. Not even in my city. I was in the middle of a parking lot. A fucking Walmart parking lot. At 3 a.m. My clothes were soaked in sweat. My shoes were missing. My phone was gone. I had no idea how I got there. But the worst part, the moment I stood up, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket, even though I didn't have it before. I pulled it out with shaking hands. The screen was cracked. The battery was at 1%. One new message. No number. No contact name. Just a single text. "Did you like the show?" Then, before I could react, an image. It was me, lying in my bed, from inside my closet. The timestamp? 5 minutes ago. I looked up, heart pounding, breath ragged, scanning the empty parking lot. And then, in the farthest corner, just barely visible under the flickering yellow light, a figure, standing perfectly still, watching me. And then, in my pocket, my phone buzzed. One last message. "Run." I didn't run. I couldn't. I just stood there, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. My whole body was locked in place, paralyzed by something worse than fear. Pure, primal horror. Because the figure in the parking lot, it was still. Too still. Not shifting its weight. Not breathing. Just standing there. Staring. The Walmart parking lot was empty, except for me and it. No cars. No late-night employees sneaking smoke breaks. No distant traffic. Just the buzz of a flickering streetlight, stuttering like a failing heartbeat. And then, it moved. Not like a person. not like someone just taking a step forward. It twitched, like its limbs weren't used to working properly, like its joints were too loose, like it was testing them. And then it lurched forward, not walking, not running, just jerking toward me, an unnatural glitching movement that sent ice down my spine. I finally snapped out of my trance. I ran. I don't even remember making the decision. My body just acted, adrenaline taking over as I sprinted across the cracked pavement, my bare feet slapping against the cold ground. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed to get away. But the second I moved, so did it. I could hear it. Not footsteps, scraping, like nails dragging across the pavement. I risked a glance over my shoulder, and I wish I hadn't. It wasn't just following me. It was copying me. Every movement I made, every twist, every stumble, it mimicked it, but not perfectly, like it was learning in real time, adjusting its body to match mine, forcing itself into my shape. And then I saw it, its face. It was me, but wrong, like someone had taken my face and stretched it over a skull that didn't quite fit. The mouth was too wide, the eyes were too dark, and the worst part, it was smiling, a perfect, frozen copy of my own grin. I ran harder. I don't remember how long. My legs were screaming, my lungs burning, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. The town around me was completely deserted. No cars, no lights in the buildings, just long, empty streets stretching in every direction, like the whole world had been abandoned, or worse, like I had been removed from it. And then, a sound, click, like a camera shutter. I turned a corner and nearly collapsed in relief. A McDonald's, neon red and yellow, glowing against the night. The only building with any signs of life. I ran to the entrance, yanked the door open, and practically threw myself inside. The warmth hit me instantly. The smell of fries, cleaning chemicals, cheap plastic. It was too bright, too normal, like stepping into another reality. And behind the counter, a teenage girl with a dead-eyed expression barely glanced up from her phone. Welcome to McDonald's. I turned to look behind me. The parking lot was empty. The thing that had been chasing me was gone, but I knew it wasn't over. I staggered toward the counter, gasping for air. Do you have a phone? I need to call someone. There was a... She held up her own phone. No signal. I frowned, pulled out mine. 1% battery. No service. No Wi-Fi. What do you mean, no signal? We're in the middle of... And then I noticed something. The girl behind the counter. She wasn't blinking. She was staring. At me. Like she recognized me. Like she had been expecting me. And then, at the exact same time, every employee in the McDonald's turned their heads toward me. In perfect unison. I took a step back. My pulse slammed against my ribs. What the fuck is this? None of them answered. They just stood there, staring. Then, the drive-through speaker crackled. A burst of static. Then a voice. My voice. Did you like the show? I ran. I didn't even think about it. I just turned and bolted out of there, shoving the door open so hard it nearly came off the hinges. And when I hit the parking lot, I saw it, waiting for me. The thing that wore my face, standing directly under the golden arches, still smiling. I stopped dead in my tracks, my whole body locked up. Then it raised its hand and waved, and I swear to you, I heard it laugh. Not a normal laugh, not human, a distorted, glitched-out imitation of my own voice. Then, my phone buzzed. I didn't want to look. But I did. One new message. From me. No text. Just an image. I clicked it. And what I saw, I will never forget. It was a picture of me, sitting at my laptop, smiling, timestamp, tomorrow, and behind me, in the reflection of the screen, the thing, leaning over my shoulder, whispering into my ear, watching me, like it had always been there, like it had never left, like it was waiting for me to come home. I didn't go home. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. Every muscle in my body screamed for me to go somewhere familiar, somewhere safe. But I knew, deep down, I knew that if I went back to my apartment, it would be waiting for me. So I ran. I don't remember how long. My legs felt like lead. My lungs burned. My vision blurred from exhaustion and fear. I must have looked insane. Barefoot, sweating, stumbling down the side of the road like some escaped mental patient. But I didn't care. I just kept moving, away from the McDonald's, away from that thing. The streets were still empty, too empty. No cars, no pedestrians, no distant sounds of life. Like the world had been vacated, or like I had been cut out of it. Then, headlights, a car. For the first time in what felt like hours, I saw another human being. An old, beat-up Toyota crawling down the road, its high beams cutting through the darkness. I barely thought. I just ran into the street, waving my arms. The car slammed to a stop inches from me, horn blaring. The driver, a middle-aged man with glasses and a cigarette hanging from his lips, rolled down his window, furious. "What the fuck is wrong with you, kid?" I could barely breathe. Please, you have to help me. There's something following me. I don't know what it is. He stared at me. Then slowly, he smiled, and in the cold glow of the headlights, I saw his teeth. Too white, too many. My stomach dropped. I took a step back, my legs shaking. He chuckled, a slow, wet sound. "Nowhere to run, buddy." And then he lifted his hand, holding my phone, except I still had mine. I looked down at my pocket, at the cracked screen still clutched in my hand. But there it was, another one, identical. Same case, same scratches, same 1% battery. He held it up, showed me the screen. It was open to my camera, a live feed of me. From behind, I turned. Something was standing right behind me, a blur of motion, a cold, clawed hand wrapped around my wrist, and everything went black. I woke up, tied to a chair. My wrists burned. The rope was rough, digging into my skin, cutting off circulation. My head lolled forward, my vision swimming. I felt sick, my stomach twisting with nausea. The room was dark. No, not just dark. Wrong. Like it was missing something essential, something fundamental. The walls weren't walls. They moved, shifted, like static on an old TV, crawling and flickering with shapes that almost looked like faces before melting away again. The air was thick, too thick, like breathing in liquid. And then, a voice. My voice. "Comfortable?" I froze. I looked up, and there, standing in front of me, was me, smiling, not blinking. It leaned down, bringing its face inches from mine. I could smell something rotten on its breath. "You don't belong here," it whispered. "You should have never clicked the link." I tried to speak. My throat was raw. My lips cracked. "Where am I?" It tilted its head, studied me, and then it said something that made my blood run cold. "This is your room now." It stepped aside, and I saw the screen. A massive monitor, glowing in the dark, and on it, a live stream. Thousands of viewers. A chat scrolling too fast to read. And in the center of the screen, me, tied to the chair, being watched. I started thrashing. Let me go, you sick fucks." Laughter. a glitching, overlapping sound, like multiple voices speaking in perfect unison. Then a countdown appeared. 0, 0, 5, 0, 0. The same timer from the website. No, I whispered. No, no, no. A message popped up on the screen. A viewer had donated $500, and the message attached. Start the show. The lights in the room flickered, the wall shifted, and behind me, I heard something crawl out of the darkness. Something with too many legs, breathing, waiting, and then the countdown started. 0, 0, 0, 4, 59, 0, 0, 0, 4, 58, 0, 0, 0, 4, 57, and the viewers started cheering. The countdown kept ticking. 0, 0, 0, 4, 56, 0, 0, 0, 4, 55. The chat exploded with messages. Let's go. Make it hurt. Hope he screams. The room shifted. The air turned heavier, the darkness growing thicker, denser, alive. I could feel it pressing against my skin, like wet fabric. Something unseen slithering against the floor, brushing against my bare feet. Then, a donation alert. A robotic voice spoke through unseen speakers. Too loud, too close. 1,000 donation from user, Night Watcher. Bring out the first guest. I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to see. But I heard it. Something crawling. Long, wet, deliberate movements. Like bone and muscle scraping against themselves. Something old and broken forcing itself forward. I tried to move. Tried to fight. My wrists burned as I struggled against the rope. Panic turning to raw, animal terror. And then I saw it. It stepped into the light, wrong in every way possible. It had the shape of a person, arms, legs, head. But that's where the similarity ended. Its skin was stretched too tight, pale and waxy, like it had been pulled over a frame that wasn't human. Its limbs were too long, its fingers tapering into jagged, claw-like points. But the worst part, it didn't have a face. Not really. Just a smooth, featureless surface, except for its mouth. A perfect copy of mine. Grinning, wide, teeth too white. And as I watched, it started laughing. In my voice. 500 donation from user, Hunter Soul. Start with his fingers. The thing lurched forward. I screamed. My whole body bucked against the chair. A raw, mindless struggle for survival. But the ropes wouldn't break. The creature lifted one of its hands, its long, jagged fingers, twitching, clicking together like rusted scissors. It reached for my left hand. I felt the first claw press against my pinky. And then, bang, a gunshot. The thing jerked backward, screeching. The chat exploded with, WTF? No! Restart, restart, restart. More gunshots. Pop, pop, pop. The screen in front of me cracked, glitching violently before blinking out entirely. And then, a voice. A real one. Jesus Christ. Someone cut him loose. Hands grabbed me. I flinched, body convulsing with terror. But they weren't claws. They were real hands. Rough, human, warm. I felt the ropes around my wrists loosen, then snap. My arms went limp, my body slumping forward. More gunfire, screeching, the sounds of something huge collapsing behind me. Someone grabbed me under the arms, hoisted me up. We gotta move, now! I tried to focus. My vision was swimming, my head pounding like I had been concussed. But through the haze, I saw them. Men, dressed in black, tactical gear, moving fast, rifles raised. A SWAT team. What the hell? A hand gripped my shoulder, turning me around. A man with a scarred face stared me down, his eyes sharp, calculating. You the idiot who clicked the link? I couldn't answer. He sighed. Yeah, you are. All right, move. Two of them dragged me forward, half carrying me toward an open doorway. I stumbled, my legs nearly collapsing beneath me. My bare feet slapped against wet tile. I turned my head one last time. And what I saw, I still don't know how to explain. The room was falling apart. The walls were peeling away, revealing something underneath. Not drywall, not concrete. Something alive, pulsing, beating. The shadows twisted, forming shapes. More figures stepped forward from the darkness. Copies of me. Some half-formed, their faces melted, their limbs twitching unnaturally. Others perfect. Too perfect. Their mouths all moved in unison, whispering something I couldn't hear. And at the center of it all, the thing, the first one, the original, still smiling, still watching. And as the SWAT team pulled me through the door, I saw it lift a hand and wave, like it was saying goodbye. And then the door slammed shut. Epilogue. I don't know how much time passed. The next thing I remember, I was in a hospital bed. White walls, the steady beep of a heart monitor, the feeling of clean sheets against my skin. I thought, for a second, just a second, that it was all a dream, until the door opened. The scarred man walked in, the one from the raid. He pulled up a chair, sat down, folded his hands. "You got lucky," he said. I stared at him. My mouth was too dry to speak. He sighed, leaned forward. "Look, you're gonna have questions. I'm gonna answer exactly one of them." I swallowed. My throat burned. "What?" My voice was barely a whisper. "What was that place?" He watched me, his expression unreadable. Then, "That wasn't a place." I blinked. "What?" He stood up, adjusted his jacket. "That was a signal." I didn't understand. But then he held up a phone. My phone. The screen was shattered. The battery was at 1%. And there was one new notification. A message from an unknown number. He placed it on the table beside me. Then, before walking out, he said one last thing. "We shut down the site. But that doesn't mean we stopped the broadcast." The door clicked shut behind him. I stared at the phone. My hands were shaking. Slowly, I reached out, turned it over, and read the message. It was just 2 words. "See you." And underneath, a photo. I clicked on it. My breath stopped. It was me, sitting in my hospital bed, staring at my phone, and in the reflection of the screen, something behind me, smiling, watching, waiting for me to look up. I paid a dark web hitman to track my stalker. The reply was, "I was already hired to watch you." I never thought my life would become one of those stories you hear on YouTube. Those eerie, animated horror tales where everything seems normal until it suddenly isn't. My story starts in a pretty ordinary way. My name's Brian, and I'm just your typical 22-year-old college student living in Los Angeles. I go to UCLA, hang out with my friends, and spend way too much time on social media, just like everyone else. But trust me when I say, what happened to me was anything but ordinary. It all started when I noticed something weird on my Instagram. One night, I was scrolling through my feed, liking pictures of people I hadn't seen since high school, when I noticed a profile that stood out. The account had no name, just a single letter X as the username. No profile picture, no posts, nothing. But it was following me. At first, I didn't think much of it. People make weird accounts all the time. Maybe it was someone from school, or maybe a spam bot. Whatever. But then, the messages started. It was around 2 a.m., and I was sitting on my bed, half watching some random Netflix show, when I got a DM from that account. It was a single message. "I see you." "Okay, that was weird." I replied, "Who is this?" but got no response. I figured it was some prank or scam, so I blocked the account and forgot about it. But I should have taken it more seriously, because that was only the beginning. Over the next week, things started getting stranger. I'd see the same account pop up with different names, like XWatcher99 or Silent Eyes X, always with that letter X. I kept blocking them, but they kept coming back. One night, I was hanging out with my best friend Tyler at a nearby McDonald's. We were chilling, eating fries, and talking about school stuff. I was telling him about the creepy accounts. Tyler just laughed and said, "Dude, it's probably just some random troll trying to mess with you. Block them and move on." He was probably right, but deep down, I felt like something was off. The way these accounts kept reappearing was starting to freak me out. That night, I got another message. This time, it said, "You shouldn't eat McDonald's so late. Fries aren't good for you." My heart dropped. I looked out my bedroom window, half expecting to see someone standing there, staring at me. I replied, "Who the hell are you? How do you know where I was?" I got an instant response. "I've been watching." Okay, this wasn't a troll. This was real. Someone was following me. I decided to tell the campus police about it. I showed them the messages and the accounts, but they said they couldn't do much without proof. They suggested I stay alert and report anything suspicious. Not very helpful. A few nights later, I was walking back to my apartment after a late study session at Starbucks. I'd had 2 cold brews and was wired, so I wasn't paying much attention to my surroundings. That's when I noticed someone following me. I thought I was being paranoid, so I walked faster. The footsteps behind me got faster too. I didn't want to turn around, but I had to. I glanced over my shoulder and saw a man in a dark hoodie. His face was obscured, but I knew he was looking right at me. I picked up the pace, practically running to my apartment. I got inside, locked the door, and peered through the peephole. There was no one there. I told myself it was just a coincidence, that I was imagining things, but then I got another message. "You look scared." I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, clutching my phone like it was a lifeline. I kept thinking, who was this person? What did they want? The next day, I decided to do something drastic. I'd always heard stories about the deep web, the place where you could find anything for the right price. It was stupid, I know, but I was desperate. So, I downloaded Tor, got myself a VPN, and started digging around. I didn't really know what I was doing, but after hours of browsing forums, I found a page called The Silent Network. It was a place where people could hire services. Let's just say, not the kind you'd find on Craigslist. I found a section for trackers. These were people you could hire to find someone, to figure out if someone was stalking you. It felt wrong, like crossing some invisible line, but I was desperate for answers. I found a user called Deadeye. They had hundreds of 5-star reviews, which was both terrifying and reassuring. I messaged them, explaining my situation and asking if they could find out who was following me. They replied instantly, payment up front, $1,000 in Bitcoin. That was a lot of money for a college kid, but I paid it. I didn't care. I just wanted this nightmare to end. Deadeye messaged me back. "I'll get back to you in 48 hours. Stay safe." Those 2 days felt like an eternity. I barely slept, barely ate. I jumped every time my phone buzzed, but when the reply finally came, It was worse than anything I could have imagined. Deadeye wrote, I have the information. Your stalker hired me first. They paid me to watch you. My hands went cold the second I read Deadeye's message. Your stalker hired me first. They paid me to watch you. I sat there staring at the screen, my breath coming out in short, shaky gasps. My stomach twisted into knots. This wasn't just some internet troll messing with me. This was real. I tried to type a reply, but my fingers felt numb. Finally, I managed to type out, Who hired you? Tell me, please. Deadeye was already typing. The 3 little dots blinked on my screen, stretching the silence into something unbearable. Then the reply came. I can't give you their name, but I can tell you this. They've been watching you for a long time. Longer than you think. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. This wasn't just some random stalker. Whoever this was, they had planned this. They had paid someone, a professional, to keep tabs on me. How long? I typed back. Deadeye took a few seconds to respond. Since you were 15. I stopped breathing. 7 years. Someone had been watching me for 7 years. I stood up so fast, I nearly knocked my chair over. My apartment suddenly felt too small, too exposed. The windows, the door, everything felt like it had eyes. I messaged Deadeye again. You have to tell me more. I'll pay you more. His reply came fast. Not about money. It's about rules. But I'll tell you something else. Since you paid, they're not done with you yet. In fact, you were never supposed to find me. I was supposed to stay in the background, keep an eye on you, make sure you never saw what was coming. My throat went dry. What was coming? Deadeye's next message sent a chill through my entire body. You were never meant to live past this year. I felt a ringing in my ears. My whole body was trembling. I read the words over and over, hoping I was imagining things, but the message was still there, staring back at me. Someone had planned my death. I grabbed my phone and called Tyler. He picked up almost immediately. Yo, what's up? I need to come over, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause. Dude, you good? I'll explain when I get there. I threw on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and bolted out the door. Tyler lived about 10 minutes away, but that was the longest 10 minutes of my life. Every shadow on the sidewalk, every car that passed by, it all felt wrong, like someone was just out of sight, watching. By the time I got to his apartment, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely ring the doorbell. He answered, looking confused. Dude, you look like you just saw a ghost. I pushed past him into the apartment, locking the door behind me. Bro, what the hell is going on? I told him everything. The messages, the accounts, Deadeye, the 7 years of watching, the fact that I wasn't supposed to make it past this year. Tyler didn't say a word the entire time. When I finally finished, he just sat there, staring at me. Then he laughed. I just looked at him. You think this is funny? Nah, man. I think this is insane. Like, legit insane. You paid a hitman off the dark web, and he told you someone wants you dead. Do you hear how that sounds? I clenched my fists. Tyler, this isn't a joke. He saw the look in my eyes, and finally got serious. Okay, so, what do we do? That was the problem. I had no idea what to do. Then my phone buzzed again. I nearly dropped it. Slowly, I picked it up and looked at the screen. Another message, from a different number. I know you went to Tyler's. My entire body went ice cold. Tyler saw my face. What? What is it? I turned the phone around to show him. His expression went from confused to terrified in seconds. Someone was outside. I ran to the window and yanked the blinds up, scanning the street below. Nothing. But that didn't mean anything. "Dude," Tyler said, stepping back from the window. "What if they're inside?" I felt sick. We checked every room, every closet, every corner. The apartment was empty. Then the power went out. The room plunged into complete darkness. I heard Tyler whisper, "No, no, no, no." Then my phone buzzed again. I looked down, my hands trembling as I unlocked it. A picture of us, standing in Tyler's apartment. The picture was taken from outside the window. I felt the blood drain from my face. Tyler saw it too, and whispered, "We need to get out of here." We didn't even pack anything. We just ran. We bolted down the stairs and out into the street, running as fast as we could. I didn't know where we were going. I just knew we had to move. We ran for blocks before finally stopping at an all-night diner. The kind that's open 24/7 with flickering neon lights and a coffee pot that looks like it's been sitting there for days. We sat in the back, trying to catch our breath. My phone buzzed again. "You shouldn't have run." A second later, another message. "Now I have to do this the hard way." Then, a final message. A video. I hesitated before pressing play. The screen was black at first. Then, the video came into focus. It was dark, grainy footage. A room. A chair. Someone sitting in it. Someone tied to it. Then the camera moved closer. I felt my stomach drop. It was my mom. Her head was slumped forward, her hair covering her face. Her hands were tied behind her back. The camera zoomed in on a note taped to her chest. 3 words. "Come home. Now." The video ended. I stared at the screen, my hands going completely numb. Tyler was saying something, but I couldn't hear him. My ears were ringing. My whole body felt like it was shutting down. Then, another message. "You have 1 hour." My vision blurred. My head pounded. This wasn't just about me anymore. I had no choice. I had to go home. I don't remember standing up. I don't remember leaving the diner. 1 second, I was staring at my phone, my mom tied to a chair with a note taped to her chest. And the next, I was running. My legs felt numb. My stomach was twisting itself into knots, and my vision was blurring at the edges. Tyler was shouting behind me, but I barely heard him. My entire body was screaming at me to move faster. I needed to get home. I didn't care if it was a trap. I didn't care if I was running straight into my own death. None of it mattered. My mom was in danger, and I only had an hour. Tyler managed to catch up with me a few blocks later, grabbing my arm and yanking me back so hard I nearly fell. "Dude, stop!" he panted, doubling over, trying to catch his breath. "Let me go," I shouted, yanking my arm free. "No, listen to me." He grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. "Think, man, think. This is exactly what they want. They want you to go back there." "I don't have a choice, Tyler." My voice cracked, and I felt the sting of tears burning in my eyes. "They have my mom. What the hell am I supposed to do? Just sit here and let them—" I couldn't even say it. Tyler looked at me, his face pale and drawn. Then he pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the cops." "No," I said immediately, shaking my head. "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no," I snapped. "Think about it. This person has been watching me for 7 years. They knew I was at McDonald's. They knew I was at your place. They knew we ran here. You don't think they'd see the cops coming?" Tyler hesitated. "So what, man? We just do what they want." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I go. Alone." Tyler shook his head. Like hell you are. Tyler. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. If I don't go, they'll kill her. Silence. He knew I was right. Finally, he exhaled sharply and clenched his fists. Fine, but I'm coming with you. No. Dude. No, Tyler. If something happens to me, I need someone to know what's going on. He didn't argue. He just stared at me, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Then, slowly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a knife. A small one, probably the kind he carried for protection. He pressed it into my hand. At least take this. I nodded and shoved it into my hoodie pocket. Then without another word, I turned and ran. The streets felt empty as I ran through them. Too empty. No cars, no people. Just an eerie, suffocating silence. By the time I reached my mom's house, I could barely breathe. The porch light was off. The curtains were drawn. It looked wrong, like something was already dead inside. I stepped up to the front door, my hand shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the lock. My fingers felt numb. My heart was slamming against my ribs so hard I thought it might break through my chest. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The house was pitch black. I stepped inside, my foot hitting something slick and wet. I didn't have to look down. I could smell what it was. Blood. The second I registered that, the lights flickered on, and I saw the walls. They weren't walls anymore. Not really. Not with all the pictures taped to them. Hundreds, no, thousands of pictures of me. Some of them were normal, like old photos from my Instagram or Facebook. Others were different. Candid shots of me at school, walking down the street, sleeping. There were pictures of me as a kid, ones I had never seen before, ones taken when I was inside this house. My legs nearly gave out, my vision tunneled. But then I saw her, my mom, still tied to the chair. Her head was hanging forward, her dark hair covering her face. Her arms were limp. She wasn't moving. Mom? I ran to her, dropping to my knees. My hands fumbled to untie the ropes around her wrists. Mom, wake up. I'm here. I'm here. A sound. A slow, wet, gurgling sound. Her shoulders twitched. Then her head rolled back. And her face. Her mouth had been sewn shut. Thick, black thread was looped through her lips, forcing them into a grotesque, silent scream. Blood had dried in thick, dark lines down her chin. Her eyes were open, but they weren't her eyes anymore. They were wide, empty, hollow. She wasn't alive, but she wasn't dead either. Something was inside her throat, something moving. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could only watch as something pushed against her sewn lips from the inside, stretching the stitches tight, making the black thread strain and split her skin. Then, with a sickening RRIP, the stitches tore open, and something came out. Something wet. Something alive. I scrambled backward as a thin, glistening hand slid out of my mother's mouth, its fingers twitching and curling against her chin. The skin was stretched too tight, like it had been wrapped in plastic. Then another hand. Then a head. It wasn't human. Its face was long, its mouth stretched into something that wasn't quite a smile. Its eyes, my mother's eyes, were still lodged inside its sockets, staring at me, crying. It pulled itself free, dropping to the floor in a heap of slick, twisted limbs. Then it crawled toward me, fast. I scrambled backward, my hand slipping on the blood-soaked floor. My heart was hammering so fast I thought I might pass out. Then, a voice. Not from the thing. from behind me. You were never supposed to see this. I turned and saw him. A man stood in the doorway, tall, thin, dressed in black. His face was blurred, like my eyes refused to fully process him, like my brain couldn't understand what it was looking at. He tilted his head, watching me struggle, watching the thing that had crawled out of my mother's body slither closer. Then he smiled. "You came home," he said, and the lights went out. Darkness swallowed me whole. I couldn't see, couldn't move, could barely think. The only sound was my own heartbeat, slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming closer. I wanted to move, to run, to scream, but my body was locked in place. My limbs refused to obey me, like I was trapped inside myself, watching everything unfold from behind my own eyes. A voice slithered through the darkness. "You came home." It was him, the man in black. I heard him take another step. The floorboards groaned beneath his weight. "After all these years," he murmured, "I finally get to meet you properly." I tried to speak, tried to demand answers, to scream, to do something, but my throat was dry, raw, broken. Another step, then a click. The lights flickered back on. The room was different now. The walls were breathing. The pictures of me were gone, replaced by something far worse. The wallpaper had been stripped away, leaving raw, pulsing flesh underneath. Dark veins spread across the surface, pulsing, twitching, like the walls themselves were alive. A low, wet, churning sound filled the air. The ceiling dripped. A thick, black substance oozed from the cracks, raining down in slow, sticky globs. And in the center of the room, my mother's body was gone. Only the chair remained, its wooden frame soaked in blood. But the thing that had crawled out of her, it was still here. It stood just a few feet away from me, its thin, unnatural limbs twitching, its stretched skin pulled so tightly over its bones that it looked like it might rip apart at any second. Its head was tilted. Its eyes, my mother's eyes, were still inside its sockets, but they were staring at me now, crying, dripping thick black tears, and the man in black stood beside it, watching, waiting. 7 years, he said softly, tilting his head. 7 years I've prepared for this moment. I could finally move. I could finally breathe. But I didn't run. I couldn't. I knew, somehow, that if I ran, I wouldn't make it. I forced my voice to work. "Who are you?" The man's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "I've had many names." His voice was wrong. Too deep. Too sharp. It felt like it was inside my skull, twisting around my brain like a knife. "But you," he continued, "you know me best as X." My stomach dropped. "No," I whispered. That's not possible." He chuckled. "Oh, but it is." I shook my head violently. "You're lying." He took a slow step forward. "You still don't understand, do you?" He gestured to the thing beside him, the thing that had worn my mother's body. "This," he said, "was your warning." The creature twitched. A sharp, wet snap sounded as its neck twisted too far to the side. Its mouth, too wide, too human, too wrong, opened slightly, and it spoke, in my mother's voice. "Run!" The word barely escaped its lips before the man in black snapped his fingers, and the creature collapsed, like a marionette, with its strings cut. Its skin split open, spilling black, writhing tendrils onto the floor. The air filled with the thick, nauseating stench of rot and decay, like something had been dead inside it for a long, long time. I staggered backward. My vision blurred. My head was pounding. I could barely breathe through the overwhelming stench of death, and the man in black just stood there, watching. Why? My voice was barely above a whisper. Why me? His smile widened. Because I was paid to. The words sent a cold, sharp pain through my skull. No, I muttered, shaking my head. That doesn't make sense. He took another slow step forward. Your stalker, he said, hired me first. My body went rigid, but not for what you think. The air around us seemed to tighten, pressing against my lungs, making it harder to breathe. They didn't just want to watch you, he murmured. They wanted to keep you. My skin crawled. But I had other plans. He reached into his pocket, pulled out something small, a phone. My phone. I patted my hoodie instinctively, but my pocket was empty. He held it up, letting me see the screen. A message was open. From Tyler. Bro, where are you? Pick up the phone. Dude, something's wrong. And then, one last message from Tyler's number. But it wasn't Tyler who wrote it. Too late. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed my own throat, my vision spinning. You see? The man in black whispered, stepping closer. You were never supposed to survive this long. The walls began to shudder. The black veins pulsed violently, and the room twisted, the air rippling like liquid. Something was coming. Something bigger than him. Bigger than all of this. Your stalker paid me to watch you, the man said, his voice dark and gleeful. But someone else, something else, wanted to make sure you never left. The floor split open beneath me, and I fell. I didn't scream. I couldn't, because as I fell into the darkness, something whispered my name. Not from above, not from below, from inside my own head. And then, everything went black. Falling. It didn't feel like falling. Not in the way your stomach drops on a roller coaster, or the way your body jerks awake from a nightmare. This was different. This was slow, like sinking through thick, suffocating liquid, like being pulled down, deeper and deeper, into something I wasn't supposed to see. And then, I stopped. Not with a crash, not with an impact. I just wasn't falling anymore. I opened my eyes. I wasn't in my house. I wasn't anywhere. I stood on nothing. Endless darkness stretched in every direction, but it wasn't just darkness. It was alive. I could hear it breathing, feel it pressing against my skin like invisible hands, twisting, curling, pulling. Then, a voice. Not from the man in black, not from anything human, from behind me. You were not supposed to wake up. I turned, too slowly, like my body wasn't mine anymore, and I saw it. It wasn't a person. It wasn't an it. It was many things, all at once. A mass of limbs, hands, faces, all shifting, all weeping, screaming, laughing at the same time. Some of the faces were mine. Some of them were Tyler's. Some of them were my mother's. Some of them I didn't recognize, but I knew they had been me before. And I knew, with a deep, crawling certainty, that I was supposed to join them. I stepped backward, but my foot landed on nothing. I was trapped. There was nowhere left to go. The thing slithered forward, its faces stretched, morphing, melting into new expressions of pain and joy and hunger. You were supposed to become one of us. I tried to speak, but something was inside my mouth, thick black threads pulling my lips shut, forcing me into a silent scream. You should have never hired him. The man in black. Dead-eye. This thing, this God, this thing that had no name, was the reason he was watching me. The stalker, the messages, the warnings, they were never meant to stop me. They were meant to bring me here. You were always meant to be here. The voices were inside my skull now, whispering, chanting, humming in a rhythm that made my bones ache. I tried to run. I tried to wake up, but I wasn't asleep. I was trapped. And then I saw something that made my stomach turn to ice. At the very center of the shifting mass of limbs and faces, something was hanging. A body. My body. Suspended in the air, arms limp, head slumped forward. My own skin peeled back, my own ribs split open, my own eyes missing from my skull. My throat clenched. I was dead. I had already died. Or maybe I had never been alive. The thing reached for me, its hands wrapped around my arms, my legs, my throat. And then it pulled. My skin tore. Not all at once, slowly, deliberately, like peeling the husk off rotten fruit. I felt every nerve snap, every vein split, every layer of flesh rip apart like wet paper. And underneath, there was nothing. Just more of them. I was them. I had always been them. And as the last shred of me was swallowed whole, the world blinked. I woke up in my bed. My room was quiet. The sun was rising. For a moment, I thought, maybe, just maybe, it had all been a dream. But then, I saw the pictures. Not the ones from before. Not pictures of me. Pictures of someone else. A boy, 17, dark hair, a familiar face. And underneath each photo, a single letter, 10. And I understood. This wasn't over. I had never existed. Not really. I was just another name on the list. And now, it was someone else's turn. I ordered an unreleased Burger King menu item from the dark web. The meat tasted off. Alright, I know how this sounds. I do. Ordering food from the dark web, it's some next level horror movie bullshit. But I swear, this happened, and I think it might still be happening. Let me back up. My name's Jake. I'm 22, live in a shitty apartment just outside Atlanta, and I spend way too much time on the internet. Not just normal internet, either. I like the weird corners. You ever go down a rabbit hole so deep that when you finally look at the time, it's 4 a.m., and you're reading some guy's blog post from 2009 about a haunted VHS tape he found in a thrift store? That's me. So a few weeks ago, I was up late, half drunk, and scrolling through an old food review forum. I don't even remember what I was looking for. Probably some nostalgia post about those purple Heinz ketchups from the early 2000s or some shit. But somewhere along the way, I found a thread that wasn't supposed to be there. It was titled, BK Blacklist Items Do Not Order. I clicked on it. A list of burgers that shouldn't exist. At first, it looked like one of those dumb conspiracy theory posts. The guy who wrote it claimed that Burger King had an entire secret menu of items that were never meant to be sold to the public. Not just failed promotional items, but actual banned food. Shit that was pulled for reasons other than bad sales. Most of them sounded like weird marketing stunts gone wrong. Nightshade nuggets, chicken nuggets, but coated in black seasoning. Apparently, the people who ate them said they were so spicy, it felt like their gums were peeling. One guy claimed he couldn't taste anything for a week after trying them. The Crybaby Whopper, a normal Whopper, except the meat was soaked in vinegar. According to the OP, people who ate it started crying uncontrollably after finishing it. Not because of the taste, like actual grief. Some said they felt like they had lost a loved one. And then there was the lost one. The one with no description, just 2 words. The meat experiments. I scrolled down to see if anyone had commented about it. Maybe someone had tried it. Maybe it was just an inside joke. Before I could read anything, the entire thread disappeared. I refreshed the page. 404 error. I tried using Wayback Machine. Nothing. It was gone. The hunt for the meat experiments. Now, I don't know if it was the alcohol or my sleep-deprived brain, but I became obsessed. This wasn't like some creepypasta bullshit. This was real. Someone had gone out of their way to delete that thread, and I wanted to know why. So I did what any rational person would do at 3 a.m. I started digging. I checked Reddit, Twitter, Discord, old archived food blogs. Nothing. No mentions of the meat experiments. No rumors. No viral stories. It was like the entire thing had been erased. Then, after hours of searching, I found something. It wasn't on Google. It wasn't even on a normal site. It was an advertisement, and it was meant for me. But here's where shit gets weird. This ad wasn't like a normal pop-up. It didn't come from Burger King's official account. Hell, it didn't even come from a verified page. It showed up while I was scrolling Twitter. The username was at meatlover_1974. And the image? A blurry ass pixelated photo of a burger. It looked wrong. The bun was charcoal black. The patty was too thick, almost like a slab of raw steak shoved between two burnt pieces of bread. The caption, "Tired of the same old fast food? Try something exclusive. Not available in stores. Not even on Earth." I should have ignored it, but I didn't. I clicked the link, and that's when everything went to hell. I clicked the link. I don't know why. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe it was the fucked up curiosity that only kicks in when you've been awake too long and your brain starts treating reality like a game. But the second I hit that link, I regretted it. The page wasn't like a normal website. It loaded in pieces, like an old school dial-up connection struggling to pull a page from 1997. But there was no branding, no flashy graphics, just a plain black background with one single item for sale. The King's Secret. Price, $29.99. No description, no ingredients, no way to contact the seller. Just a buy now button sitting there like it was waiting for me. And against every single instinct screaming at me to stop, I bought it. I typed in my card info with shaking hands. The site didn't even ask for my address. The second I confirmed the purchase, the screen went black. Then, a single line of text appeared. "Your meal is being prepared. Enjoy the taste of something new." No confirmation email, no tracking number, nothing. Just those words burned into my screen like an after image. I sat there, staring at the monitor, waiting for something else to happen. But after a few minutes, the page automatically closed itself, and my stomach dropped, because when I checked my phone, I had a new text message from a blocked number. "Delivery in progress. Be ready." The delivery that shouldn't have happened. It was 4 a.m. when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Not loud, not rushed. Slow, measured. I froze. My apartment was on the second floor. There were no other deliveries scheduled. My Ring doorbell app hadn't sent any notifications. I checked it anyway. Nothing on the camera feed. I stood up, heart pounding, and crept toward the door. The air felt wrong. Thick, heavy, like I had woken up in a dream that didn't belong to me. I peered through the peephole. No one was there. Just a black delivery bag sitting on the welcome mat. I waited, held my breath, listened for footsteps, a car door, anything. but the hallway was dead silent. I should have left it there. I should have. But my body was moving before my brain could catch up. I unlocked the door, snatched the bag, and slammed it shut behind me. It was heavier than any fast food meal should be. The handles dug into my fingers, almost like whatever was inside was pulsing. I unzipped it. Inside was a plain cardboard box. No logos, no markings, just a single piece of yellowed paper taped to the top. A handwritten note. Eat fast. Don't let it get cold. My skin crawled. The handwriting was shaky, like whoever wrote it had been gripping the pen too hard. The ink was slightly smudged, almost like it had been written with wet hands. I stared at the box for a long time. The air in my apartment felt thick, like the walls were breathing. I reached out, hesitated, then finally, I opened it, and what I saw inside made my stomach flip. The burger that wasn't a burger. At first glance, it almost looked normal. Almost. But the details were wrong. So fucking wrong. The bun was too dark. Not burnt, but an unnatural shade of black. Like it had been dyed with something that should never be in food. It looked wet. The lettuce was limp, yellowed at the edges, and smelled faintly of copper. The cheese, if you could even call it that, was an off-white, almost grayish, with an oily film that reminded me of skin. But the meat, it was thick, way too thick, almost like a full steak had been wedged between the buns. But it wasn't steak. It wasn't anything I recognized. It was pinkish red, marbled with veins that shouldn't be there. The texture was wrong, like ground meat that had been pressed together, but never actually cooked. It glistened under my kitchen light, sweating something viscous. And the smell. It wasn't beef. It wasn't pork. It wasn't any fucking meat I had ever smelled before. It was sweet, almost like honey, but underneath it was something foul, something that made my throat tighten. I should have thrown it away. I should have burned it, but I was hungry, and something about the smell made my mouth water. The first bite, I don't know what came over me. 1 second, I was staring at the burger in disgust. The next, I was holding it in my hands. My fingers sank into the bun. It was softer than it should have been, almost like memory foam. The meat pulsed slightly under my grip, like it had been freshly cut. I raised it to my mouth, and I took a bite. The texture was wrong. It wasn't chewy like beef. It wasn't fatty like pork. It was soft, almost too soft, like overcooked fish. But as I bit down, I felt something crunch, not like bone, not like cartilage, something thinner, like the delicate snap of a fingernail. I gagged. My body rejected it instantly. I spit it onto the plate, wiping my tongue with my hands. But the taste, oh God, the taste. It was metallic, like biting into a mouthful of pennies. But underneath that, something sweet, something that shouldn't be sweet, something that tasted like rot masked with sugar. I was shaking. I grabbed the burger, ready to hurl it into the trash, when it moved. The meat was alive. It was subtle, a twitch, a slight shift in the patty, like it was adjusting itself. I thought I was losing my mind. Maybe it was just grease shifting. Maybe I was imagining it. But then, it breathed. A slow, shuddering inhale, like lungs filling with air. I dropped the burger. It hit the plate with a wet slap. The meat pulsed again, more this time. The veins running through it bulged, twisting beneath the surface, like something was moving inside. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Do not waste the king's gift. I stared at the screen, heart hammering. Then, from inside the bag, I heard it. A wet, sticky sound. like something crawling, something trying to escape. The burger twitched on the plate. I saw it. I fucking saw it. It wasn't some trick of the light. It wasn't my mind playing games on me. The thick, unnatural slab of meat inside that blackened bun shuddered, convulsed, like something inside it was trying to get out. And then it breathed. A slow, deliberate rise and fall, like lungs filling with air. I backed away from the table so fast I knocked over my chair. My stomach twisted, bile creeping up my throat, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. The meat's surface rippled like a drop of water on a speaker. Then it cracked open. A thin, wet slit split down the center of the patty, like a gash in flesh. Something inside it moved. Something pale, something worm-like. I saw it for only a second before the meat snapped shut again, sealing itself, like it had blinked. My phone buzzed. A text from the same unknown number. "It's watching you." I dropped my phone. My whole body locked up. The room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in, the air thick with the smell of rotting meat, masked in something sweet. I couldn't be here. I couldn't fucking be here. I grabbed the plate, ready to throw the whole thing in the trash. But the second my fingers touched the bun, something inside it moved again. I felt it. Something wriggling. Something warm. I screamed and hurled the plate across the room. It smashed against the wall, shattering on impact, the burger slamming against the floor with a sickening wet slap. And then I heard it. From inside the meat, a wet, sucking gasp, like a newborn's first breath. The thing in the bag. I ran to the kitchen sink, splashing water on my face, trying to force oxygen into my lungs. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I needed to get this thing out of my apartment. I turned back toward the mess on the floor, and my stomach dropped. The burger was gone. The shattered plate was still there. The blackened bun was there. But the meat itself was missing. I took a slow, shuddering breath. And then the bag moved. It was sitting on my counter, still half-zipped. I hadn't touched it since taking out the burger. But now it bulged. Something inside it was shifting. A soft, wet rustling, like raw meat sliding against itself. Then a sound, a gurgling, clicking noise, like cartilage snapping in a too-wet throat. I took a step back, heart hammering. The bag lurched forward. I ran. Something is in my walls. I locked myself in my bedroom, panting, sweat soaking my shirt. My ears were ringing, my head pulsing, and then I heard it. A skittering, a slithering, not in the kitchen, inside my walls. It started near the floorboards, a faint, wet scraping against the drywall. Then it moved upward, faster than any living thing should move. I pressed my back against the door, my breath coming out in short, panicked gasps. My phone buzzed again. "You let it in." I almost threw up. I held my breath, trying to listen, but the noise was gone. Dead silence. The only sound was my own pulse, pounding in my ears. I don't know how long I stood there, waiting. 1 hour, 2, but at some point, I drifted into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The dream. I was in a Burger King, not a real one. Something wrong. The walls were too dark. The lights flickered. The air thick with something rancid. The employees, they weren't right. Their skin sagged unnaturally. Eyes too small. Faces stretching and twitching like they were learning how to smile. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't listen. A figure stepped forward from behind the counter. Not a man. Not something that had ever been a man. Its head was too long, stretched like taffy, its jaw hanging loose, as wet, stringy meat dripped from its lips. Its teeth weren't human, just rows and rows of something else, something that was still growing. It leaned forward, too close. Then it spoke, not in words, not in a voice. It spoke in hunger, and I understood, the taste of something new. I woke up screaming. The second my eyes snapped open, I tasted it. The burger, the meat, still on my tongue. I vomited. Bile burned my throat as I collapsed onto the floor, gasping, sobbing, shaking. But the taste, it wouldn't go away. It was inside me. I grabbed my phone, hands slick with sweat. Another text. You ate it. It ate you back. I dropped the phone, and then I felt it. A slight movement, under my skin, right beneath my ribs. A slow, pulsing twitch, like something settling in, like something getting comfortable. It's not over. I haven't eaten in 3 days. I don't feel hungry. I feel full. My skin feels tighter. My veins feel thicker. And at night, when everything is quiet, I hear it. A wet, sticky sound. A clicking noise. Inside me. It's still growing. And worst of all, I'm starting to crave it. Not burgers. Not fast food. Something else. Something that's waiting for me. Something I can't stop. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it. Moving. A slow, deliberate twitch under my ribs. The first time, I thought it was just my heartbeat. Just a muscle spasm. Just my brain fucking with me after what happened. But it wasn't. It was deeper than that. And it wasn't me. The taste wouldn't leave my mouth. No matter how much water I drank, no matter how many times I brushed my teeth, the taste stayed. Metallic, sweet, rotting. I scraped at my tongue with my nails until I drew blood. Didn't matter. The taste was still there. The thing is, I wasn't hungry. Not at all. I was full. Full in a way that felt wrong. Like I'd just eaten a 10-course meal made of concrete and I'd never need to eat again. But my body disagreed. I looked in the mirror that morning and my skin, it was changing. My skin is turning black. It started small, a spot on my ribs, no bigger than a bruise, but too dark, inky, unnatural. When I touched it, my fingers came away greasy. The smell hit me next, not from my breath, from my pores, a faint, sickly sweet odor, like raw meat left out in the sun. It was seeping out of me, sweating through my skin. I pressed my fingers into the black spot, digging into my side, and something twitched back. I dropped to my knees, gasping. It wasn't just a bruise. It was spreading, growing. Something is inside me. I sat on the floor, shaking, pressing against my ribs, feeling for movement. And then, it pushed back. Not like a normal stomach rumble, not like gas, like a response. Something under my skin, pressing against my fingers, pulsing. I ran to the bathroom and shoved my fingers down my throat, trying to force it out. Nothing came up. No bile, no food, no relief. Only the taste of it. Still there. Still inside me. And the worst part, I liked it. The hunger. Set. And it started slow. Not real hunger. Not human hunger. A different kind. A knowing. My body wasn't asking for food. It was waiting. And then, the smell hit me. Not from my kitchen. From outside. I walked to my window and looked down. There was a stray cat by the dumpsters. It was rotting. Half of its body was missing. Fur torn away. Glistening ribs exposed. Flies swarmed its corpse. Eyeless sockets leaking. And the second I saw it, I started salivating. My stomach groaned. Not with pain. Not with nausea. With want. I turned away, slamming my back against the wall, pressing my hands over my ears. My phone buzzed. A text. You're ready. My hands were shaking as I picked up my phone, chest heaving. I opened my camera app. turned it to selfie mode, and what I saw, I almost screamed. I'm not me anymore. My face looked normal at first, too normal, like a wax figure of myself. My skin was too smooth, my lips too stiff, like I was learning how to hold an expression. And then I smiled. I didn't mean to. It just happened. My lips peeled back, revealing teeth that weren't mine. They were too sharp, too many. I dropped the phone. It clattered against the tile. My reflection stared back at me, still smiling, even though my face wasn't. The meat is changing me. I ran to the kitchen, grabbing the biggest knife I could find, pressed it against my skin, against the black spot spreading over my ribs. I pushed down. Nothing. The knife wouldn't cut. My skin had turned to something else. Something tougher. Something not human. I pushed harder, and for the first time, the meat reacted. It pulsed beneath the blade, like a heartbeat, a warning. I dropped the knife, panting, my whole body trembling. My phone buzzed again. A picture of me. But I wasn't holding the phone, and I wasn't alone. The things in the walls, the air changed. It felt thicker, heavy, wet. Then, the noises started. A skittering, not just in the walls anymore, inside the apartment. Something dragging itself, something watching. I turned slowly and saw it. A shape in the doorway. Not a person, not an animal, something in between. Its skin was stretched too tight, too wet, glistening under the light. Its face was wrong. No nose, no eyes, just a mouth. Too wide, filled with teeth that looked like mine. And when it saw me, it grinned. It's too late. I don't know how long I've been in here. I haven't left the apartment. I haven't eaten anything. But I'm not hungry. Not in the way I used to be. The black spot on my ribs has spread. It's covering half my body now. And the worst part, I don't care anymore. The smell that made me sick before, I crave it now. The taste that haunted my tongue. I want more. I caught myself licking my fingers this morning, but I haven't eaten. Not yet. And I think something is waiting for me to. The final message. My phone just buzzed again. Another text. But this time, it wasn't from an unknown number. It was from my own contact. My own name. Come outside. We're hungry. I checked the people. There were people standing outside my door. At least there used to be people. Now there's something else. Something just like me. And they're smiling. They're waiting. Because they know I can't fight it much longer. And when I finally step outside, I won't be me anymore. I'll be one of them. The people outside my door weren't people anymore. They had mouths. Too many. Rows and rows of grinning teeth stretching across their faces, like their skin had been pulled too tight over something inhuman underneath. They stood motionless, packed shoulder to shoulder, their bodies slightly twitching, shivering, like they were hungry, but holding back, waiting. I could hear them breathing, a wet, sucking inhale, like something thick and raw was coating their lungs. The sound of saliva dripping, the occasional sharp click of teeth grinding together. Then, one of them, a man who looked half digested, his flesh sagging, his eyes too wide, spoke. Come outside. His voice wasn't right. It was too many voices at once, some deep, some high-pitched, all speaking out of sync, like a recording played backward. I backed away from the door, my breath hitching, my body locking up, as the hunger inside me twisted. I didn't want to open that door, but some part of me, the part that was already changing, did. The meat inside me was moving. It stirred beneath my ribs. The hunger wasn't just a craving anymore. It was pain. a deep, gnawing ache spreading through my chest, like something was growing inside me, something pushing against my bones. I staggered toward the bathroom mirror, gripping the sink. My fingers felt wrong, thicker. My nails were darkening, turning black at the tips, my knuckles bulging slightly, like the bone was shifting beneath my skin. And then I saw my ribs. The black bruising had spread, curling up my chest, wrapping around my shoulders like roots. The skin wasn't just discolored anymore. It was splitting. Small, hairline cracks ran through my flesh, just deep enough to see something wet beneath, something moving. I pressed a shaking hand against my side, and something pushed back. I could hear it, whispering. The voices started softly, not outside the door, inside me. A low hum, growing louder, vibrating through my bones. It wasn't speaking in words, but I understood it. It was telling me what I was becoming, telling me to eat, telling me to finish what I started. I fell to my knees, gripping my skull, my breathing ragged as the hunger clawed up my throat. My stomach felt empty, like it had never been full before, like it had been waiting for something real. I scrambled towards the kitchen, pulling open the fridge, the cabinets, tearing out food, ripping open raw meat, stuffing it into my mouth. Nothing worked. I chewed, I swallowed, but it was like eating air. I couldn't taste it. I wasn't meant to taste it. I was meant to taste something else, something that was still alive. The door handle turned, click. I snapped my head up, my mouth still full of raw meat I couldn't even taste. The door was unlocking. The things outside hadn't moved. They just stood there, staring through the peephole with their blackened, hollow sockets, waiting. I should have run, but my body wouldn't let me. The hunger was too strong now. My hands twitched, my fingers flexed, testing themselves. My jaw ached, like something inside it was reshaping. And as the door began to slowly creak open, I realized I wasn't scared anymore. The smell of meat, it hit me like a drug, thick, sweet, rancid and mouth-watering all at once. It poured through the crack in the door like smoke, filling the apartment, sinking into my lungs. I felt my teeth shift, my stomach tighten. I stumbled forward, gripping the edge of the door frame, staring at the figures outside. They weren't just standing there anymore. They were offering me something. A burger, just like before. The blackened bun, the pulsing wet meat inside. And I wanted it. I didn't fight it this time. I reached out with trembling hands. I lifted it to my lips. I took a bite. And this time, I tasted everything. The last bite. The moment the meat hit my tongue, something inside me snapped. It was like a switch had been flipped, like I'd been starving my whole life. And finally, I was eating. The flavor. It wasn't like before. It wasn't metallic or rotten or sickly sweet. It was perfect, rich, savory, like the exact thing I'd been missing all this time. I chewed slowly, savoring every bite, my mouth watering so much I could barely swallow. My fingers dug into the bun, feeling the warmth of the flesh inside, the way it still twitched slightly in my grip. The others watched silently, smiling, approving. They knew. I belonged now. I finished the burger, and when I did, the hunger, it was gone. For the first time, I felt complete. I felt real. I understood. I'm not alone anymore. I stepped outside. The others parted, making room for me. I could feel them now, not just in front of me, inside me. Their thoughts, their hunger, their purpose. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. I felt their approval as they took me in, as my body adjusted, As my teeth sharpened, my skin toughened, my hunger was finally fulfilled. I had become one of them. I had become something else. And now, I was ready to bring others to the table. The final text. Before I stepped away from my old life, my old apartment, my old body, I felt my phone buzz one last time. I looked down. A new message from an unknown number. "You're on the menu now." I smiled. I understood. And then I turned off my phone, dropped it onto the floor, and walked into the night. Because we were hungry. And there was so much more to eat.